Alright, flankers that are much better than the original fragrance. Yes, today that's what I'm talking about. I've got a bunch of fragrances, flankers, that are much better to me in comparison to their original versions. Find out what they are in this video coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, today I'm talking about fragrance flankers. Flankers that came out after the original fragrance launched, and they are much better than the original fragrance. At least to me, these flankers are much better than the original fragrances. And I've got a bunch of them. I've got niche houses and I've got designers, of course, and all really great flankers. If you don't know the flankers yourselves, you've got to check them out because I highly recommend them in comparison to their original releases. Anyway, I'll let you know what they are before I do. If this is your first time tuning into the channel and you still haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button and also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. Let me know if you have ran into this situation where the flanker that came out after the original fragrance is much better than the kind of boring original fragrance is. Put a comment down, let me know what it is so I can find out. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to a niche house, and I think this is one of my best experiences in this scenario or this situation, whereas the original came out and I was like, this is okay. It's kind of boring. I don't really think, you know, it's anything groundbreaking or anything to even write to anyone about. I was excited for the original fragrance, but once I sampled it, I got bored. But sure enough, they launched a flanker of this, and I was like, wow. They really outdid themselves to what the original fragrance was. I'm talking about MONTALE's Arabians, which is very boring to me. And the flanker to that is Arabians Tonka. Amazing reversal of quality here from something really boring, a little sour. It's an oud based kind of aromatic and leathery oud, but there's a major sourness in there and not one I really enjoyed wearing. And I love MONTALE fragrances, but when Arabians Tonka came out, I was like, this is a great fragrance. I mean, even though it hardly smells anything like the original, but I'm really enjoying this one. The original has the oud, lavender, rose, leather, cardamom, thyme, ambergris, musk, vetiver notes, but in the flanker Arabians Tonka, it's sugar, tonka beans, oud, saffron, rose, amber, musk, and bergamot. It's such a different take on the original. Even though I read you the notes, there are some notes that are similar to the original, but I think the addition of tonka and sugar in here makes for a really awesome flanker to the original fragrance. So that's the first fragrance I'm talking about, MONTALE's Arabians versus MONTALE's Arabians Tonka. Let me know if you've compared the two and which of the two do you enjoy more. And then one more thing I should say, tonka bean is a great note. I really enjoy it when it goes into the gourmand direction, and this one kind of lightly goes into that direction, and I think that's what I like about it. I like the tonka beans, nuttiness, bitterness. There's light tobacco-ish undertones there as well, and that's what I like about this one. Alright, next we're going to a designer house, and this is a series that launched, and I thought that when they launched this series in 2017, I was like, I'm already bored of the previous similar series. They're redoing the whole series, and you know, they gave us something pretty nice, but I wasn't wowed by it. But by the time the Eau de Parfum came out, I was like, this is kind of getting close to smelling like something like DIOR Parfum, or DIOR Intense, I should say. I'm talking about Gentleman Givenchy in the Eau de Toilette with Gentleman Givenchy in the Eau de Parfum. The Eau de Parfum is so much smoother, so much sexier, a lot more butterier. They have Orris butter in there. There's also Tolu Balsam. So it kind of has a light gourmandish touches there, buttery, powdery, sweet, vanillic kind of balsamic notes. But the original, just really boring. I don't hate the fragrance, but it's just like not one I really reach out for, or reach for I should say. But the Parfum, the Eau de Parfum, is quite phenomenal. I think it's a great job that the perfumers behind this did. even though I think what they were doing with this particular fragrance was they're going to launch something kind of mediocre, kind of boring, but what they're really going to do is wow us with the Eau de Parfum version, which is exactly what they did. But now there's a bunch of other versions of this one. I still prefer the original, but I'm looking forward to that new one that's coming out soon. We shall see how it is. But in comparison, this is Iris. Both of them are Iris, although they say Iris for notes here, Orris here, but it's the same flower pretty much. It's the root of the iris. The original has iris, pear, leather, lavender, cardamom, vanilla, and patchouli, and the Eau de Parfum has Orris, vanilla, Tolu balsam, tonka beans, patchouli, benzoin, cloves, cinnamon, and lavender. This is top-notch quality fragrance, almost getting to the quality of like DIOR Homme Intense, DIOR Homme Parfum, but the original, very boring to me. Alright, the next series of fragrances is from the house of Dior, and of course I'm talking about DIOR Homme versus DIOR Homme Intense versus DIOR Homme Parfum. When I first discovered DIOR Homme, I thought it was nice. It was a powdery rendition of a men's fragrance with the citrusy touches and things like that. But I felt like, you know, it's a nice fragrance. I think I wanted a little more. When I first discovered DIOR Homme Intense, I thought this is really, really great. They've done a great job with this one. It's taking DIOR Homme into a sexier direction, a little muskier, a little more powdery, lightly leathery, but you know, still lacking something. And I would never expected Dior to deliver us with what I would call a masterpiece, DIOR Homme Parfum, because they've actually amplified it even further. They took the original, gave us a concentrated version in the DIOR Homme Intense, then they gave us even more concentration with DIOR Homme Parfum, and it's the best flanker, I think, out of the whole entire series. It smells phenomenal, it's intense, it's robust, it's beefy, it's really, really a wonderful combination of the iris with the leather, the kind of lipsticky, makeup-y kind of a smell thrown in with like leathery touches, and of course, you know, there's some light rosy touches and little citruses and some muskiness. But I absolutely love this one. I think it's the best flanker out of the whole entire collection. The DIOR Homme cologne is there too. It's nice, it's fresh, but nothing to, you know, write home about. And then of course they just launched DIOR Homme Sport 2021. What a doozy of a snooze fest that fragrance is. Boring, 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 boring. And you know, I had the original DIOR Homme Sport from about 3-4 years ago. Similar, but you know, they didn't give us anything really new. I'm not really enjoying it, and I feel like I'll keep DIOR Homme Sport for you know, using at the gym or something. But if you're kind of confused about the whole entire collection, try and get your hands on DIOR Homme Parfum. I know it's really, really complicated, but to me it's the best flanker. It just does it for me. It's, I don't want to say it's niche quality, but because what the heck is that? It's a designer after all, it's DIOR Homme, but this is ultra uber quality fragrance creation in comparison to the original DIOR Homme, and now of course DIOR Homme 2020. Anyway, let me know if you guys feel the same way. Let me know if you're struggling to get your hands on DIOR Homme Parfum. Hopefully it'll land at discounters soon so you can get it, but it's all about DIOR Homme Parfum for me from the whole entire DIOR Homme series of fragrances. Now we're moving on to another niche house. This is the house of Juliette Has a Gun. This is the collection of fragrances called Not a Perfume. So we've got the original Not a Perfume here, and we've got the Not a Perfume Superdose here. Two very ambroxan heavy fragrances, although they claim that this is Cetalox, which is another you know, trademark version of like something similar to ambroxan, but to me it's like an ambroxan experience, so it's very musky, woody, ambery. So a lot of people complain about the original where they can't smell anything. Sometimes it's like a love it or hate it. A lot of people swear by this particular fragrance because they like that whole minimalistic kind of muskiness with the dry woods, amber, and musk thrown in together. But when this Superdose came out, because originally it's like, this is very, very like minimal, like minimalistic, very, very like there's hardly anything there. Here with Superdose, they've amplified it so much when you can't smell anything here in the original Not a Perfume, in the Superdose version, you can totally smell it, and it's intensified. It's like major overdose, in this case it's called Superdose, of the Cetalox notes. So if you're having challenging times with the original Not a Perfume, you think it's nothing there, it's just alcohol, which I hear sometimes from you guys. Do definitely try the Superdose. It's definitely intensified, it's amplified, it's overwhelming experience of the original. Again, it's definitely just one note, it's a single note of fragrance, Cetalox, which is like an ambroxan, but you know, you get the woods, you get the amber, you get the musk, you also get a little bit of light aquatic touches, and that's all kind of rolled into one with one particular experience. And as I said, if you don't smell this one, you'll definitely smell the new Superdose, or the newer version of this particular fragrance. I really do like Superdose. I think it's great, and sometimes if I want something minimalistic but where I can actually smell the actual note itself, in this case the Cetalox, I go for Not a Perfume Superdose. And you can use these two as layering tools, but definitely this one, you can hardly smell it, and it could be used as a primer, meaning spray it, let it dry, then spray the fragrance on top. It will extend the life a little bit. But here, definitely there's a smell, and you can actually wear this to enjoy it on its own with the smell that's in here. Anyway, Juliette has a Guns, Not a Perfume versus Not a Perfume Superdose, and this one I highly recommend as a great flanker to the original. So when I first started reviewing fragrances, everybody was talking about this fragrance as a great vetiver. It's probably one of the darlings of the fragrance community. If you are just entering, you'll probably hear about this fragrance because everybody's talking about it. This is from the house of LALIQUE, and it's ENCRE Noir. It's an inexpensive budget fragrance. You can get it for about 30 bucks for 100 ml, and it's definitely a solid release. But I felt like, even though I really enjoyed it, it wasn't calling me, you know? It's one of those fragrances that seems a little more simplistic, even though it's got these kind of like more intense kind of notes, vetiver, and then the cypress and the cashmerean and things like that. You know, it just didn't call me. And even though I love vetiver, it's one of my favorite notes, I felt like this just kind of like was in the back, and I'd reach for something like Guerlain's vetiver over this. But when this you know, flanker launched the ENCRE Noir à la Extrême, I got very excited. I thought, what are they going to do with this original? And they really outdid themselves and gave us a very luxury version of this one. When this was more of a kind of a one-dimensional you know, experience, they gave us something very luxury and really kind of like one that you would actually crave and want to wear. Because even though they're both very similar fragrances, I mean, it's similar smells, the way this one wears has layers after layers after layers, whereas this one, it's like, okay, cypress, vetiver, some muskiness, and that's pretty much it. But here, you go through a journey of the different notes, and it actually is a great wearing experience. And both of them are super inexpensive at the discounters, about 30-35 bucks for 100 ml. And if you're looking at getting one of them, definitely go for the flanker, the à la Extrême. It's so good. It's very luxury smelling for that price point. I think it's a great fragrance, and also it's kind of like an alternative of Chanel's Sycamore. So if you like the idea of Sycamore, and it's way overpriced now, especially with the price hike they recently did, 200 ml, $400, very pricey. You can get away with using something like this for about 35 bucks for 100 ml. It's such a great fragrance. I really think that the Nathalie Lorson did a great job with this one. She did a great job. This is a good fragrance, but this wears a little one-dimensional, and this wears more, you know, oomfier, like it's got beef to it, like it's heftier. And of course you go through some major changes throughout the lifetime when this wears kind of like, you know, one-dimensional, as I said. Anyway, ENCRE Noir, à la Extrême is a great flanker and a great version of the original ENCRE Noir. So going to the House of Commodity, recently I learned that they were coming out with a scent space collection of fragrances, and it's really exciting. I did a video on this collection of fragrances paper, which is this. They've changed the bottles now, and they've given us 2 versions of the original, and I was really surprised at how great these came out. The original is the original. It's the way that it's supposed to be worn. Now you can get flankers of the one fragrance in a more skin scent version and a more robust, heftier version. So the skin scent version would be Paper Minus, and then Paper Plus would be the heftier version. And the way the Scent Space collection works is the regular fragrance is the regular fragrance, which is what's normally sold. If you're looking for something that you don't want to get the attention and you want less people to notice your scent, you would go to the Minus. And the way that people will notice your scent is if they get really close to you. If you want people to notice your smell and you want them to, you know, smell you coming down the hall, you would go with the Plus fragrances. And Paper Plus is amazing. It's really great. It's taking paper and amplifying it, intensifying it, and beefing it up. The paper fragrance is kind of like a minimalistic woody experience, whereas paper, the original, is ISOE Super, but they've got sandalwood and cedarwood in addition to the ISOE Super. But in the Minus, it's more of a, you know, like a skin scent basically. It's the ISOE Super, like you would experience Molecule 1, with a kind of a light ambery touch. And then with the Plus, it's robust, as I said, it's intense, it's beefy, it's a little ambery, but there's lots of woods here. Definitely have the ISOE Super, and then there's that creamy, milky sandalwood thrown in. A great version. I think the flankers are both great. It depends on your mood, and you want something minimalistic, you want something like a skin scent, a fragrance that people have to get really close to you to smell you, or do you want people to smell you from far away? So I like the idea of these scent space fragrances, and I think they did a great job with this collection, and soon I'm going to explore the more fragrances from this collection. But definitely, if you're looking for something like a paper fragrance, it's the ISOE Super woody fragrance. Definitely look for the, you know, the flankers of the original. The Paper Plus, as I said, is the more beefier version, and of course Paper Minus is the more skin scent version. So Guerlain does a lot of flankers to a lot of their men's fragrances, especially the L'Homme Ideal collection. And even though I was a big fan of L'Homme Ideal Eau de Parfum and the cologne, which the cologne is no more in the picture, I never was a really big fan of the original L'Homme Ideal. I like it, I have a bottle, but it doesn't call me, you know, it doesn't say come wear me kind of a thing. But as I said, I was a big fan of the Eau de Parfum. Now I've kind of like lost interest in that fragrance, especially after the L'Homme Ideal Extreme has come out, and I think it's the best flanker in the whole series. It smells fantastic, it's boozy, it's tobacco-ish, and you know, it smells really great. It's an ambery kind of spicy take on the original, and I think it's the best flanker in the whole entire collection. Sure, cologne was great. I like that kind of like fresh lemony take on almonds and Tonka, but here I think they've gone a little away from the original smell with this one, which is the almonds and Tonka, but I like what they've done. They've added the fruitiness of the plum, the tobacco, there's this booziness in here. It smells really great, and I think it's the best flanker in the whole series, even more now than the Eau de Parfum, which at one time, when it was just those two, I appreciated. So let me know if you've tried this one. This is really great. Sadly, I did a video on this collection last year. It never got an official release here, so you're only going to be able to get them at the discounters or from overseas, but get your hands on this one. It's a really great fragrance from Guerlain. Alright, next going to the House of Xerjoff. It's Accento versus Accento Overdose. You know, Accento is a nice, pleasant, clean, kind of a musky fragrance, focusing on pineapples and hyacinth and iris and musk. I thought it was nice. It's not something I would go gaga over, like, oh my god, that's the best smelling fragrance. It kind of, to me, is a different take on something like Aventus. Not identical, because it has the pineapple, it has the musk and some other notes in here that kind of would remind me of something like distantly related to Aventus. I thought it was pleasant, you know? But when Accento Overdose came out, I was wowed by it. I was like, oh my god, this one smells so much better than the original Accento, and what they've done with this one is fantastic. They've also intensified it, plus it smells fantastic in the heat. It's deep, rich, fruity notes and jasmine with green lily of the valley. There's some light rosy touches. In addition to that, there's aldehydes and green notes and pine note. It's such a unique fragrance, totally different than Accento, and it smells really, really great. And it comes alive in the heat, and it lasts a long, long time in the heat as well. I absolutely love this one. Whereas I like this one, I think Accento Overdose is a fantastic job done creating this particular fragrance. Anyway, Accento Overdose is fantastic. If you haven't tried it, do. I think it smells great all year round, but it comes alive in the heat on you. Oh man, it's amazing. This collection has gotten better and better with the third flanker finally. So I got burnt out on smelling Halfeti, because the Penhaligon's store here in San Francisco used to have this fan that would blow out the smell. Every time I'd walk by that store, all I would smell is Halfeti. So it's not a fragrance I talk about, even though it's quality. A couple years ago, they launched Halfeti Leather. I thought it was a better take on the original, but you know, it's just still not one of those wow, wow, wow fragrances. But finally, Halfeti Cedar came out, and I was wowed by it. It was really, really one of the best flankers. In fact, one of my favorite discoveries of last year, not launched in 2021, but still a great, great fragrance. And they've taken Halfeti into a complete boozy, cedar, kind of fruity direction that I think they've done a great job with it. All three of the fragrances are created by the same perfumer. You know, he's done a great job with this one, whereas the other ones do smell great, but this is the kind of fragrance that I you know, calls me and wants me to wear it because, you know, I like the way it smells. Whereas the other ones do smell great, and I'm sure somebody out there thinks it's the best out of the three. One of them is, but for me, I think Halfeti Cedar, and it does have the cedary touches, but what I like about this one is the booziness, the fruitiness. Just an amazing release. Anyway, this is Halfeti Cedar from Penhaligon's. If you don't know those three, definitely check them out. I think they've done a great job creating those fragrances. Next up, it's a collection of fragrances from Parfums de Marly, Layton versus Layton Exclusive. Layton is a great fragrance to wear. It's woody, it's spicy, and it's got like vanillic touches in there as well. It's a great wear all year round pretty much, I think. But when Layton Exclusive came out, they kind of made it a little more daring with the addition of oud and the kind of a sweet kind of crunchy appley note that's thrown in, but still retaining the spiciness and the vanilla that's in the original, and you know, making it a little daring with the animalic touches in there. And I think it's a great wearing experience, whereas the original is pretty mass to me. I think there are other fragrances similar to this, not identical, but you know, similar style. Here I think they've just taken it to the next level, elevated to create something really, really wonderful, especially with the fact that they've added this kind of oudi note in there, and it's a little animalic, it's a little daring. I think Layton Exclusive is definitely the better version of the two. Even though I enjoy both, I do enjoy them, but I think this is a little smarter than this one, if that makes sense. But either way, both of them are good, but the better flanker of the two is Layton Exclusive from the house of Parfums de Marly. Alright, up next I'm going to the house of Amouage. It's Interlude Man versus Interlude 53 Man. So even though I've been a fan of Interlude Man because I like the whole smoky ambery thing contrasted with that green oregano note, and even though earlier on I always thought that this was beast mode, but along came a lot of fragrances, you know, on the way that I felt like was a lot stronger than this particular fragrance. And then I think what happened was, I think it must have gotten through some kind of a reformulation, and I felt like it wasn't as oomphy as I wanted it to be, even though I really, really enjoyed the way it smells. Then comes 53 Man from Amouage, Interlude 53 Man, and I was like, they've taken this to the most luxury, concentrated, intense direction that I would crave to have, you know? Whereas this one, a lot of people claim is a beastly fragrance. It's intense. Is it because it's the kind of notes that are in here, or is it because it has the longevity, the projection, and things like that. This one doesn't to me. It used to, but as I said, when you compare it to something like this one's definitely a lot stronger, a lot more intense, a lot more beefier. So I would go with this one as the better flanker of the two, although this is a lot more expensive. But I think if I'm going to say this is beast mode, this is definitely the one that's the beast mode, you know, when you compare it to the original Interlude Man. Both of them are great smells, but I can totally smell this one to be a lot more concentrated. It seems richer, you know, there's this richness about it that I really, really like. And of course, as I said, once again, this is very, very pricey if you can afford it, or just go smell it and compare it to the original and let me know what you think. Anyway, I think out of the two, the better of the two is Interlude 53 Man from Amouage. And the next series of fragrances go into the house of Gucci. And even though I don't have the original Gucci Guilty Pour Homme, I think one of the best flankers ever is Gucci Guilty Absolute Pour Homme. When this thing came out, I felt like they outdid themselves. They gave us something daring, totally original, and something that has not been done before. And I thought Gucci's getting on the map for creating really great fragrances. I don't have the original, but I have one of the latest flankers from Gucci, the Parfum version of Pour Homme. Disappointing fragrances. The entire collection is just very, very disappointing. And for me, the only two that have been great so far in this collection is the Cologne, and I'm head over heels for the Absolute. I think the Absolute is just the right kind of designer fragrance with the leather, the vetiver, the cypress, the woods, and patchouli. Yes, it's a little animalic, but it's, you know, I think it's different than everything else and one that I really appreciate wearing, whereas the other ones all kind of blend in one after another to smell kind of similar. And this one, I think, is an amazing release from Gucci. Anyway, Gucci Guilty Absolute Pour Homme is the better flanker of the fragrances from this series. And that's the last fragrance for you guys today, of flankers that are much better than the original fragrance. Do you guys ever run into this situation? Do you always end up loving the original fragrance over the flankers? Let me know if you've had this situation. I know there's a lot of fragrances that come out and the flankers are not that great, but in this video, I'm talking about the flankers being much better than the original fragrances. But let me know what your thoughts are on the fragrances I discussed with you today. Do you like them, or do you like the originals more versus the flankers? Let me know, put some comments down. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video, please share it, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Okay, one more set of fragrances, this time going to the house of Nichane, and I wouldn't say that the original is bad here. I just think the flanker of this particular fragrance is so much better for me, because the original smells great, but smells like a lot of other fragrances, and I don't hate it, but the flanker smells amazing. I'm talking about Colonise versus Colonise Saffron, or Saffron Colonise. Oh man, the original is a very fresh, lemony, citrus floral kind of a combo with some cozy tea notes. There's also some green floral notes in here. Really wonderful, very, very fresh, very, very uplifting and sparkling. But Colonise Saffron, on the other hand, takes that fragrance into the lightly fruity citrus and also like leathery saffron direction, where it actually adds some heft to it, adds you know, some unique twist to the fragrance, and you're dealing with like a fresh fragrance, but there's some heft to it, there's some depth to it because of that saffron note, aromatic, leathery, and then of course some muskiness in there as well. Really, really wonderful. Both of them are great, but you know, this one I think is the original I think is better for very, very hot days, but the Colonise Saffron is a unique adventure with the leather and the saffron thrown in. Really, really wonderful fragrance. Both of them are great, but if I had to pick, I would go with the Colonise Saffron. Anyway, that is the bonus set of fragrances. Thanks so much for sticking around. Bye-bye.